Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name is Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. This week has absolutely flown by. I feel like I've been really busy and that quite a bit has gone on, and it's kind of hard to believe that it's only been a week since the sheep were shorn. If you haven't seen last week's video, go check that out where I talk about them getting shorn for the very first time. They still look like little lambs to me now rather than big sheep. Hurley is by far the biggest looking, and I've been feeding them lots of grain this week to try and keep them warm. We have had a couple of cold days, or cold mornings at least. We had a little bit of frost one morning, but they have been staying inside their shelter. I've come over during the day, and they've run out of the shelter towards me, so I know that they are keeping warm. Just now I have shut them back out of the shed grass area and just back into their regular paddock and give them a big pile of hay to share, and I'll probably give them some grain this afternoon as well. I have bought myself a set of hand shears, which I think are at the post office. I have to go get those today so that I can skirt and clean up their fleeces. I've literally just left them in the bags that we put them in last week, apart from just showing you the little staples of fibre. Have not touched them. So I thought I would get something that I could use to cut their fleece properly, to skirt and clean and get rid of any of the big bits of veggie matter and stuff out, rather than ripping and getting too much of the good wool or using scissors or something like that. So I'm actually getting tools that are designed for that purpose. So then I guess I will start to lay each fleece out and see what I can do with them. I had a really, really big scare with Wade this week. He ate some rat poison. He's okay, but it was a bit of a story. So we had found a rat's nest in the bottom of our heating system. So we got all that out. And then I had jammed a couple of the square blue rat bait poisons inside the heater to try and kill off any rats that might come back to want to reuse it as their nest and home. So it's not in the backyard. It's probably a couple of meters away from the backyard, and they were wedged in. And so they have somehow, a rat has somehow dragged one of these blocks from its spot where it was wedged underneath the deck, probably 2, maybe 3 meters at least, under 2 lots of decking and into the backyard, and Wade has found it. So he was super, super lucky because he'd been asleep and I had come home, and he woke up and he went outside, and I was getting dressed to go and check on the sheep. And I came back out and he came back up onto the deck and he dropped this block on the doormat. And I literally jumped over the deck railing. I don't even know how I did it. Adrenaline, right? Picked this thing up and put it straight in the bin. I'm like, oh my God. And it had been nibbled, but it wasn't like it was half gone. It was like around the edges. I'm like, oh God. Some of that's obviously rat because it's been moved, but I'm pretty sure he's probably had some as well. This was at like 5 o'clock. So I called the emergency vet and they said, yep, come straight away. So I jumped in the car and grabbed Wade and off we went. Half an hour drive down to Lilydale to go to the vets. They made him vomit. They induced vomiting, and quite a lot of this blue stuff came out. I wasn't watching any of this. I was out in the waiting room. And the vet said of any of the sort of household poisons that a dog can normally get to, this was one of the good kinds, if there is a good kind, in that it doesn't affect them straight away. It has a slow process whereby, and it sounds really gross, the poison actually prevents the clotting of the blood. And what it does is then causes external and internal bleeding because it stops clotting production, and that's how it kills rats and mice. Um, so it doesn't act straight away. So they thought that they got most of it out, which means he probably hadn't digested a whole lot of it. It just was whether or not he'd had it over a long period during that day, which means he could have ingested some of it earlier, or whether it was just that moment just before I found him. So, yeah, vomiting done, took him home, and he's acting totally normal, but I was told to look out for all of these horrible symptoms that might have meant that he had taken some earlier and then just happened to have brought it to me at this one time. And that's how sometimes that kind of thing can sneak up on pets, because you don't then know what they have consumed. And it's not until days later that these symptoms show up. And then you're already behind the eight ball because you don't know what's going on. So he was so lucky that he just happened to bring it to the front door and drop it, and that I saw it before he'd had any more. So for 3 days, I had to sort of watch for all of these potential horrible symptoms that could occur, which was a little bit stressful. And then I took him back to the vet on the 3rd day. He was still totally fine, because what they needed to do at that point was to test his blood clotting levels or times to see if he'd been affected by the poison. So they ran some tests and everything came back normal, which was such a relief. They said just to keep monitoring him a little bit, just to make sure, just in case he might have hidden a little bit away somewhere. He seems totally fine. So lucky. It would have been fixable because we knew what had happened. He would have had to have gone on a course of vitamin K to sort of reverse the effects that this poison has on shutting down the liver, I think it is, from creating more of what causes the blood to clot. So it was able to be reversed, but it wouldn't have been a great process to have to go through. I think they have to take these tablets for a really, really long time. And he could have experienced some internal or external bleeding between having done those tests and actually getting the medicine. So, but they don't like to give the medicine before they've gone through this whole process, because you kind of have to go into a course of it, and it has other effects on you as well, of course. So yeah, a big scare for my little Wadey. I mean, he's 15 years old, and I know that he is an old man, but I want to keep him around for as long as I possibly can. So I'm so pleased that he is okay. And yeah, I never ever leaving any rat poison like that out again. I thought that being jammed in, it would stay there and that they wouldn't be able to move it, but they moved it quite a way. We normally have them in black containers that are locked, and they sort of have like a run through them, kind of like a mouse trap, but you just keep the poison inside, so they can only sort of go in and eat it and then come out. But for this one instant, I had put some blocks out separately, and that's what happened. So never ever again. I've been experimenting with a couple of different colors and techniques this week, trying to maybe do something for a Christmas colorway. I'm not sure if I've got it yet, but I have created 2 new colors. I haven't knit. I have crocheted up 2 granny squares in the colors. I did that yesterday. It was much quicker to just do a couple of granny squares than it was to knit my bloom squares that I normally do. I will do the bloom squares as well, but I just haven't got around to those yet. And I had the crochet hook just sitting there. So I've done, it's like a light green with little pops of color. And there it is in the ball. And I've also done this one, which is sort of like a reddish brown, burnt orange with pops of color through it as well. And that's it in the ball. So they both started off actually with a very similar greeny blue kind of undertone, and then I just played around with doing some different speckling and techniques to create very, very different colors. So I'm going to knit these up and see what they look like. They probably will be put into the shop, and I've got to come up with some names. So I'm not sure if these will actually become Christmas colors or not. I'm still kind of working my head around what I was trying to achieve and what I actually came out with. So I had a little bit of inspiration, but they didn't quite turn out how I thought. But I do like the results of both of these. So they may not end up being Christmas colors, but just some colors that I release in the shop shortly. This week I'm wearing my towel cardigan by Melanie Berg. It buttons up down the side, but I tend to leave it closed all of the time. When you open it up, it kind of feels quite uneven to wear because you've got a lot of fabric on this side and only a little bit on this one. So it's sort of like a jumper, but it does have the buttons down the side. And this is done with my own hand-dyed yarn in the While the Sun Shines colorway, and it is a 4-ply. It's a little bit warmer today, so a 4-ply jumper with the sleeves rolled up is about where I'm at in terms of comfort level. Maybe in the next few weeks we'll end up being short-sleeved weather, who knows. I finished the striped socks I was working on last week, and I even forgot to bring them over. I think they're already in my sock drawer. They were really short ones, and I was up to the heel on the second, so I only had a little bit to go, and then the cuff was only about this long. So they're done, and I have started some more socks. This time I've decided to do some 2 at a time, and I'm having a little bit of fun with color. What I've done is I grabbed a couple of skeins of my own yarn that I had sitting on the shelf. I've got Princess of Pink, and I've got Brown Streams and Soft Dim Skies. And I dyed these. These are not in my usual sock base. I kind of dyed up a skein on a different base, and I used it for sample colors. And then I thought that I could knit myself some stuff with it. So I've got those. And then what I decided to do is add in some fun contrasting colors for the toes, maybe the heels, and then the cuffs. So I wanted to see how these all played out together. So what I've done is I've cast on 2 different socks, and I'm knitting them 2 at a time. So I've got the dark blue with the Princess of Pink, and I've got the lighter blue, or the brighter blue even, with the Brown Streams and Soft Dim Skies. So I'm having fun having lots of different colors on my needles. It is, I don't know whether I'll end up knitting like a pair of each, or whether these would just be a pair. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I just decided that it would be fun to just have some bright different colors on the needles. I wanted to see how both of these colorways knit up as socks. And I thought that it'd be a really good example to use in my sock classes to really show how the construction of the technique is of working over magic loop and working the heel and the cast on and everything, that you can do the 2 at a time and be doing something completely different on each sock. So I could do a pattern on one and not on the other, or I could even be at different stages of the sock. If you wanted to be casting on a second sock after you'd already started a first sock, you could actually have them working completely separately but on the same needles. So these will end up being probably exactly the same in terms of pattern and length and all of that, but they'll just be different colors. And I've also done a little bit of work on my Ramuri, the pullover short sleeved with the mosaic in the yoke. I was a bit mentally distracted this week, you know, the whole Wade story. So I didn't end up doing a lot. I did a few rows of the pattern, but I kept getting distracted and I didn't want to mess it up. So I will hopefully have a bit more brain space this week and I will get back to it. But I'm really liking how it's turning out with the patterning it's starting to show the sort of the V lines that are coming through now that I'm sort of into the second repeat of this mosaic. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.